Now, if you don't drink coffee yourself, you might think, what's the big deal? Simply don't drink it. But as we will talk about in a second, it's not that easy with coffee. And especially if you're used to drinking a lot of coffee, it can be quite hard to actually let it go. That's why we'll look at the benefits of coffee and caffeine in particular, and we'll also look at some of the disadvantages that it might bring. And after that, I will share my experience of going 30 days without coffee. Now, I do love coffee, I love the flavor of it, I love how it makes you feel when you're tired in the morning, but sometimes I gotta admit, I feel like I'm slightly addicted to coffee maybe, especially in my past. I did have some periods, especially in my mid-20s, where I drank way too much coffee. And at some point, Lucas and I, we actually decided to cut coffee after 1 p.m. because otherwise it can affect your sleep, and we will talk about that in a second. But now I actually wanted to give it a try to go 30 days without coffee completely. Now, I found this quote on Wikipedia which says, "Coffee is the world's most widely consumed psychoactive drug." And there might be something to that. Now, to the benefits. First of all, coffee is a really powerful stimulant. And everybody who in the morning felt tired and has drank a cup of coffee before knows what I'm talking about. It can make you feel energized, it can make you lose your fatigue, and you feel clearer and more focused. And the way that happens is through caffeine. Caffeine basically is a stimulant that tells your brain that you're not tired anymore. The way that caffeine works is it blocks another neurotransmitter called adenosine. And adenosine is basically what tells your brain that you're getting tired. So over the day, the level of adenosine in your body starts to raise. And what coffee does is it binds to those receptors where usually the adenosine would go and tell your brain, hey, you're tired. And because the caffeine sits there, you don't really feel that. Caffeine basically improves your mental performance. It makes you feel less tired, you're more focused, and you even have a better memory. And on top of that, caffeine can actually help you burn fat. So what it does is caffeine increases your metabolic rate. That is the rate at which your body burns calories. That's why many people, before they go to the gym, they drink a cup of coffee because it increases their metabolic rate and they burn slightly more fat in the gym. That being said, if you're a long-time coffee drinker and you drink way too much, that effect might actually go away. So if you want the fat burning effect to continue, you might want to moderate your coffee consumption or have some days where you don't drink any coffee at all before you start again. On top of the fat burning aspect, it also helps you to improve your physical performance in the gym. The caffeine raises your adrenaline level, and that basically tells your body to be more alert and be more energetic. Again, having a cup of coffee before going to the gym might be a pretty good idea. Now, another benefit is that there seems to be a link between caffeine consumption and a lower risk for certain diseases such as type 2 diabetes and Alzheimer. But then again, it's probably more beneficial to have a healthy diet from the beginning, because just thinking that you can eat whatever you want and you can have a crappy diet and the caffeine will sort of fix it all, that's probably not going to happen. So have the healthy diet first and then maybe incorporate coffee into that. So definitely have the healthy diet first. And the last benefit I want to talk about is that coffee is a great source of antioxidants. And in the Western world, what happens is that we don't eat or consume enough antioxidants. And what are antioxidants? They are these components that help your body to get rid of free radicals. And free radicals is pretty much the stuff that damages your cells, especially in the long run. So you don't want that, and antioxidants help you to get rid of it. And most of the time, that's what gives the color to fruit, for instance. So the red pigment in bell pepper, the orange pigment in sweet potatoes, the green pigment in green leafy vegetables, and so on. And apparently, coffee is also a pretty good source of antioxidants. Now, with all these great benefits, why would you even want to stop drinking coffee or reduce your coffee intake? Now, if coffee is really the world's most widely consumed drug, there probably is also some downside to it, right? For one, it can be a little addictive. And this depends a little bit on the classification for what does it mean for a substance to be addictive. But I think everybody who has had the experience himself or herself that you are used to drinking coffee in the morning and then you have one day where there's just no coffee available and you kind of feel cranky and you really crave that cup of coffee. In my personal opinion, that's probably a sign that coffee is really slightly addictive, and I certainly had that for myself. And coffee also might cause you to have sleeping problems, and I think that's a big issue for a lot of people, because what happens is the caffeine that we talked about, it blocks the adenosine that tells your body that you're tired, and caffeine is measured by the sort of half-life. Now, coffee does not only make you feel more awake, but it also makes it more difficult to fall asleep, because as we talked earlier, your body doesn't really know that it's tired yet, because the coffee blocks these receptors. And the effect of how much caffeine is in your body is measured in its half-time. So that means that after 4 to 6 hours, probably half the amount of caffeine is still in your body. So if you have a strong cup of coffee in the late afternoon, for instance, it's highly likely that you still have a large amount of caffeine in your body when you lie in bed and you want to fall asleep, and you wonder why you can't. And probably that's because there's still caffeine in your body. And as I said earlier, that's why Lucas and I, we had adopted the habit of not drinking coffee after 1 p.m. Now the next part I actually didn't really know that much about until I felt it during the 30 days. And that is that you might feel jittery or anxious throughout the day, especially if you drink too much coffee. So apparently caffeine is positively associated with anxiety and panic disorders. So having large amounts of caffeine on a regular basis might trigger a sort of feeling of anxiety. And especially if you have a stressful life, it might not be the best idea to drink a lot of coffee to make up for it. And as I will tell you in a second, I actually felt some of that. Here's my experience of what 30 days without coffee are like. In week 1, especially, I was really missing coffee in the morning because I'm so used to waking up, making a cup of tea, making a cup of coffee, and that's sort of my morning ritual. So especially that ritual part fell apart. And I still had the tea, of course, but with coffee you have this strong and rich flavor, and I think tea doesn't really come close to that. So in the first week especially, I had a little cheat. I drank lupine coffee. I don't know if it's called lupine or lupine in English, but basically it's a caffeine-free coffee alternative that has a similar taste. It's also roasted and it just has a stronger flavor than tea. And my wife hated it. She couldn't stand the smell of it, so I always had to make sure I drink it when she wasn't there. Now, apart from that, I actually felt quite tired in the mornings without having my regular coffee. But then I noticed that throughout the day, I have pretty steady levels of energy. And I think you just saw my cat in the background. She always uses the opportunity when there's a camera or there's a screen to jump into it and show how cute she is. And lastly, I personally found that my digestion got way better. Because I feel coffee can be quite harsh on your digestion sometimes. So if you have problems with that, you might want to reduce or even skip coffee for a while and see what effect it has. Now in the second week, around the end of the second week, I actually started to notice that I felt a bit less stressed. And at first I didn't really know why. And then it came to me that maybe it's the caffeine that I'm not drinking anymore. I mean, I'm still drinking tea, but it doesn't have the same caffeine effect that coffee has. So now that I learned about the downside, that coffee can actually make you feel anxious when you're stressed, it actually makes sense to me. And for Lucas and me personally, we've been working on our online vegan cooking school for the last 2 years. And to be honest, sometimes it's a lot of work and there's so many things you have to think about. And I feel that drinking a lot of coffee at the same time can make me feel quite stressed and anxious sometimes. So the one thing that I'm taking away after these 30 days is to definitely reduce a bit my coffee intake, maybe especially during phases where I feel a bit stressed out. And then around week 3 and 4, to be honest, I didn't really miss coffee anymore. So I didn't have this feeling in the morning that, ooh, I need my cup of coffee. I still drank lupine or lupine coffee every other day, but it wasn't really that I had to have it. I wasn't really craving that flavor of coffee anymore. And I think by the last week, it was pretty much gone. And as I said earlier, I think that the energy level felt really steady throughout the day, and at the same time I actually felt less anxious, which was pretty nice. Then again, I also have to say, because it's Corona and we're still in lockdown, there's not much temptation to go outside and have a cup of coffee with someone. I don't know if you meet people on a regular basis and you sit in a cafe. I personally don't find it that great to drink tea there because I find it a waste of money, to be honest. Because I can get the same tea at home for pretty much nothing. So I didn't have much temptation on that side. And also my wife is pregnant, so she doesn't drink any coffee anymore. So to be honest, there was also no temptation at home to drink coffee because someone else was doing it. Now I can already tell you that I'm not going to give up coffee entirely, because I just love the flavor, and as we learned earlier, it actually has great benefits, but it always comes down to moderation and drinking a certain amount of coffee, not too late in the day. And I remember in my last job there was a woman, and she kind of was proud even that she drank around 8 to 10 cups of coffee a day, and I think she's not alone in that. So I think also for you, if you've struggled with sleep, if you feel that you're a little addicted to coffee, it might be a great idea to give it a try and quit coffee for at least 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. Now I'm actually quite curious how I will enjoy the first cup of coffee after 30 days, so let's find out. Okay, so I'm having my first cup of coffee after 30 days, and I'm a bit curious whether it tastes the same, better, worse. Let's have a look. It actually tastes a bit different. I don't know. I think I have to get used to the taste again. And it is a bit different from lupine coffee, which I drank sometimes for the last 30 days. But I think I can never really give up coffee entirely. And as we talked about earlier, it actually has a lot of great benefits that you don't necessarily want to miss. But probably the most important part, as always, is to keep it in balance, to not drink 10 cups of coffee a day, but rather stick to 1 or 2, and to also not drink them too late in the day. So Lucas and I, we usually have a rule that we don't drink a coffee after 1 p.m. because afterwards, as we talked about with the halftime, it's quite difficult to actually get rid of all the caffeine in your blood. So when evening rolls around, you're still sort of having that caffeine effect, and it makes it more difficult to fall asleep. And we're really big on sleep quality and not having issues with sleeping. So one of the ways to make sure that you have a better sleep is to set yourself a time until when you drink coffee, and after that you drink tea or whatever you like. Now we do want to make more challenges like this in the future. So the next 30-day challenge for me will be 30 days no sugar. And the crazy part about it is that once you read labels in certain ingredients, you realize there's sugar everywhere. And what do you think of the challenges? Do you find it interesting or not? And if so, what other challenges would you like to see in the future? Let us know in the comments, and we're curious what you suggest. So if you did find this challenge helpful, if you found it interesting, please leave a like and a comment down below. And make sure to subscribe to the channel for more videos in the future. And most of the time, if you follow our channel, you know already that we post high protein, low sugar, fitness recipes. Everything is vegan and delicious. So stay tuned for that and make sure to subscribe to the channel.